While they're headed out, would you pray with me? God, I thank you for this morning. I thank you for the church. I thank you for the privilege in our country to do this, to get together just so freely, and to direct our thoughts towards you, to praise you, to learn about you, to learn from you, to encourage each other, to find support and strength by coming together and reminding each other of these truths, as well as supporting each other through the challenges of life. We thank you for all the generations, for the newborns up into our seniors. We thank you for the way that you are growing all of us. We thank you for the growth of the gospel. We thank you for how you use us through invitation, through living our life in front of people to point them to you. And we ask, Jesus, that you continue to do that. We thank you for your word. We thank you for the power that's within it and for the ability to change and transform our hearts and our minds. And as we look at an odd story this morning, I ask that you would speak to us through it. We pray for our country. We pray for our world. We pray for places that are hurting, like families who are gathered in places of worship in Texas right now and are grieving because their children were swept away by a flood. People who are gathered in Israel and the Middle East and are grieving because family members have died through war. And the same throughout Europe and Russia and Ukraine and just the craziness of the world that we live in. We thank you that we can be confident that you're a good God and that you're working things out for the good in spite of the evil that we're enduring and living through right now. So teach us a little bit about that as we look at your word this morning and continue the process of transformation in each of us. And it's in your name, Jesus, that we pray. Amen. So I'm going to invite you to look at the side screens as I introduce our message this morning with a story from a professor, the professor of history from Goshen College. His name is John Roth, and I'm just going to read his story. This is in the introduction to one of his books, and he writes this. He says, "Late one evening while attending a conference in the German city of Hamburg, I boarded a commuter train and headed for an outlying suburb where I was planning to spend the night. The train car was completely empty at the late hour, and I dozed sleepily as it rattled past the harbor and then through the industrial district. Some minutes into the trip, however, my sleep was sharply interrupted when an elderly man, dressed in rags, and clearly suffering from mental disability, shuffled into the car, closely followed by 4 teenagers. The young men, sporting an assortment of chains, tattoos, and body piercings, entered the car amid raucous laughter and loud talk. Almost immediately, their attention focused on the old man, who had seated himself near the center doors. As I watched uneasily, the 4 began to taunt him, shouting obscenities and making humiliating references to his mental condition. Then one of the teens shook up a half can of beer, aimed the foamy spray into the old man's face. And then without warning, he began kicking his legs with heavy boots and punching him in the arms and in the face. Now, seated toward the back of the car, I looked on with a mixture of horror and fear as the terrible scene unfolded before me. I'm not a big person. I'm not trained in any of the martial arts, and I've never considered myself particularly brave. This is the kind of world that we live in, a world in which injustice seems to rule and reign, and evil lurks around all corners, a world in which people do destructive and hurtful things to other people. And sometimes it's not understandable why people do these things, but ultimately, always, it's about something within inside of them that's rooted in something that's not good and not right. It comes from a place of sin. Certainly the evil one is at work in these activities and people's choices and behaviors, as well as the sinful nature within humanity. And people behave in bad and evil and wicked ways. Now, perhaps you've never encountered a story like this, but definitely you know what it means to be around mean and destructive people. You undoubtedly have experienced this in your neighborhood, in your school, your place of work, and maybe even in your own home. The way that your spouse treats you or has treated you, the way that your parent treats you or has treated you, the way that your sibling treats you or has treated you. People do mean things. And the question is, how do we respond? And not only how do we personally respond, but how do we, like John, who's sitting in the back of the train observing this, how do we, as somebody sitting on, respond when we see these kinds of actions? What do you think John is about to do? How do you think he will respond to the situation, sitting in the back of this car, watching all of this horrible event take place? Will he respond in passivity, pretending he doesn't know what's actually going on, sticking his earbuds in, just looking out the window? Will he respond in retribution? Retribution, an act by which you pay somebody back for the evil deed that they've done. Or perhaps will he respond in forbearance, finding a solution without bringing retribution to a situation, working to demonstrate grace and truth in the situation to resolve it? Will it be passivity, retribution, or forbearance? It's the title of our message this morning, and we're going to see each one of these. Actually, we're going to see the first two of these play out in the text that we're looking at. We are in a series, Genesis. It all starts here. We're just plodding through the book of Genesis. We started back in January, and we've taken little breaks along the way. Last week is a great example of a little break that we took as we focused on baptism and baptized a number of individuals. But today we're back to this series, and we will be reading the story in Genesis chapter 34. This is, again, another story of the life of Jacob. We have, for many weeks, been looking at Jacob and his life. And you know, when you kind of pause and think about the book of Genesis, there are basically 6 key characters in the story. And we're on the 5th key character in Jacob, and the 6th will be his son Joseph. But you know, we started way back in Genesis chapter 1 and 2 and 3, and we were introduced to the first man and the first woman in Adam and Eve. Introduced into sin and brokenness and how it's wrecked the world. And then Noah, this significant figure whom God brings judgment on the world, but brings grace. Demonstrating grace through Noah. And then after Noah, we're introduced to this man named Abram. And God changes his name to Abraham and says, through you, I'm going to bless the world. I'm going to turn you into a great nation and bless your family. And to Abraham, God gives then this 4th key figure in the story of Genesis, Isaac, his son. And then Isaac is given Jacob and Esau. And so we've been in these extended stories on Jacob, and a lot of what we've observed in Jacob's life is a lot of deception and a lot of hardship in the family unit. Breakdown of his interactions with his brother, as well as with his father, and then his father-in-law, and even within his own children. Today we're going to see further damage, but we're also going to see today that it spills out into the neighborhood, to his interactions with people living around. And the question that we all will be faced with as we read the story Is it best to respond in passivity? Is it better to respond in retribution? Or perhaps the conclusion will be forbearance. So join me in Genesis chapter 34 as we pick up the story of Jacob. And actually, before we get to 34, we need to pick up on just a little bit of chapter 33 to give the full context of what it is that we're about to read. So our last story was Jacob meeting his brother Esau, and Pastor Joe talked us through that. In this encounter with his brother Esau, chapter 33, we find that Jacob says to his brother Esau, "You go back home to the town of Seir, and I will eventually come and catch up with you." Now, this is important for a couple of reasons. Let me just walk us through the journey of Jacob, right? So his story began in Beersheba. It's kind of down there in the corner, the bottom left corner, about 7 o'clock. Yeah, there you go. Thanks for using the mouse. So that is where he left his parents, his mother and father, Isaac and Rebekah, when they said, "Go back home to your mom's family, way back to Haran," which is way up at the top. It's the very top you see up near 1 o'clock. And so Jacob has been living in Haran for the past 20 years of his life. And he has just received a vision from God in which God says, "Go back home," after living there for 20 years. So he descends south, and at Mahanaim, I don't know how to say that, and near Rabbah, he meets his brother Esau. And it is there that he tells Esau, "You go home to Seir," which is way down near Elath at the bottom of the map at 6 o'clock. He says, "You go there, and I'll meet you there." Okay, now we pick up what happens. After Jacob says this to his brother, in 16 and 17, he says he was deceitful. He told his brother to go there, and he goes someplace different. After Jacob came from Paddan Aram, same area as Haran, he arrived safely at the city of Shechem. Okay, that's significant. The name of that city is setting up what we're about to read in chapter 34. In Canaan, encamped within sight of the city. And for 100 pieces of silver, he bought from the sons of Hamor, important, this is setting us up for what's about to come, the father of Shechem, the plot of ground where he pitched his tent. Now, a couple of comments about this. First observation to make is, remember, God had told Jacob, "Go home." Jacob had told his brother, "I'll meet you in Seir." Home for Jacob is where? Home is in Beersheba. Okay, Jacob is not going to Beersheba. Instead, Jacob goes over to Shechem. See, Shechem is straight across from Mahanaim. There we go, right there. Seir is directly south. So he lies to Esau. He disobeys God by going to Shechem rather than going south to Beersheba. Dinah, daughter of Jacob. That's significant. The daughter of Leah, not the daughter of Rachel. Remember, Jacob had 2 wives, Rachel and Leah, and he also had 2 concubines. So he had his 12 children through 4 different women. Rachel's the one he loves. Dinah is the daughter of Leah. She's mentioned earlier in the genealogy after the birth of her older brother. Now, Dinah, the daughter of Leah, that Leah had born to Jacob, she went out to visit the women of the land. When Shechem, remember that name, we heard it earlier, the son of Hamor, we heard of his name earlier, the Hivite, who is also the ruler of the area, saw her. He took her and violated her. He raped her. Now, his heart was drawn to Dinah, daughter of Jacob, and he loved the girl and spoke tenderly to her. And Shechem said to his father Hamor, "Get me this girl as my wife." Now, a couple of observations to make here regarding this situation. So, Dinah, note, is the daughter of Leah. Shechem is the son of Hamor. It's interesting how the writer writes. The daughter of Leah. Dinah, the daughter of Leah. Shechem, the son of Hamor, identifying these characters. As we mentioned earlier, Dinah is the daughter of Leah, the lesser loved wife. That's important to keep in mind as we read through this story, as we find the events unfold. Shechem is the son of Hamor. Now, what do we learn about this guy, Shechem? Well, we learn a couple of things about him. One, he is definitely focused on what it is that he wants. And he sees, it's interesting the way the writer writes, he simply sees Dinah, he lusts after her, he takes her, and then he violates her. This is the character of this man. Now, the text goes on to say that somehow throughout this process, he falls in love with her. It indicates that he loves the girl, that he speaks tenderly to her. There's no reference here to Dinah and how she's responding to this, how she may feel about this whole circumstance. Was she involved in this? Did she choose this? Did she go out and seduce him? It doesn't seem like that's the case. The way the writer writes, it seems as though this man saw this woman, was attracted to her physically, and simply took her and violated her, raped her. Now note verse 5. When Jacob, now again, who's Jacob? Jacob's daddy here, right? Jacob is the father of Dinah. Dinah, by the way, is probably somewhere between the age of 15 and 17 years old at this is interesting. Why is this thrown in here? Jacob hears, now we're going to talk about his sons. So this is introduction to something more that's coming. So Jacob hears about his daughter being raped. His sons are in the field with the livestock. His sons are taking care of running his business, essentially. His sons are at work. And the text tells us, so he kept quiet about it until they came home. He kept quiet about this until his sons came home. He intentionally waited till the boys came back home, till they punched the clock and finished the job before he engaged them in any kind of conversation. Now, dads, how would you respond if you hear that your daughter is raped at school or raped at work or raped in the neighborhood? Do you just sit by passively on your hands and just kind of wait? Wait for something to happen? I mean, what does this tell us about Jacob? The next thing that we learn is the story is that then Shechem's father, Hamor, went out to talk with Jacob. Now, why is he doing this? Well, because remember, Shechem says, he goes to his dad and he bosses his dad around. He says, hey, look, I love this woman here. I slept with her once. So go get her. I want her to be my wife. So again, who's Hamor? Hamor, he's the ruler of the city. He's the ruler of the area. He's the guy from whom the land was purchased. Only give me the girl as my wife. Now, because their sister Dinah had been defiled, Jacob's sons reply. Again, where's Jacob? Where's the voice of Jacob? Totally absent in this conversation. Remember, this is a business deal, right? Hamor's there, Shechem's there, Jacob, his sons are there. They're sitting down at a negotiating table, trying to negotiate for Dinah as a wife. And who speaks? The head of the family? The dad? No, he sits by idle and passive, and it's the sons. Now, it's interesting. They replied deceitfully, right? Because they're angry. They replied to the sin of Israel, you must be circumcised, right? This is what God told Abraham. This is the sign of the covenant. You must go and circumcise all the males in your family. And so the sign of the covenant has been passed on from Abraham to Isaac, from Isaac to Jacob. So all of Jacob's sons have been circumcised. They say, hey, we can't give our daughter, you can't become a brother-in-law to us if you're uncircumcised. This becomes a theme throughout the whole Old Testament, circumcision. Because again, this is the sign of the covenant. We can't do such a thing. That would be a disgrace to us. So then they go on, they say this, well, we will give our consent to you on one condition only, and that is that you become like us, circumcising all of your males. Then we will give our daughters and take your daughters for ourselves. We'll settle among you and become one people. We'll become one people with you. But if you will not agree to be circumcised, we'll take our sister and go." So this proposal seems good to Hamor and his son Shechem. The young man was the most honored of all his father's household. He lost no time in doing what they said because he was delighted by Jacob's daughter. So Hamor and his son Shechem, they went to the gate of their city. It's interesting how they conduct business. They go to the gate of the city, their city. Remember Hamor, he's the leader. He's the guy running the show there. "These men are friendly towards us," they argue to all of the other leaders. "Let them live in our land, trade in it. The land has room for them. We can marry their daughters. They can marry ours, but the men will consent to live with us as they are themselves." So won't their livestock, and this is interesting, his conclusion is, won't their livestock and their property and all of their animals become ours? So let us give our consent to them, and they will settle among us. So all the men who went out at the city gate agreed with Hamor and his. Go back to John sitting in the back of the car. Is John sitting there passive like Jacob, passively looking on? Or is John going to respond in retribution? 3 days later, all of them were still in pain. Two of Jacob's sons, Simeon and Levi, the second and fourth born, Dinah's brothers, took their swords. They attacked the unsuspecting city, and they killed every male. They put Hamor and his son Shechem to the sword and took Dinah from Shechem's house and left. Note, Dinah, again, we hear she has no voice. We have no idea how she feels about this. Think of all that she's endured. She's been raped. She's been taken home to live with the guy who's raped her. And now she sees him murdered by her own brothers. What is she thinking, feeling? How is she responding in all this? They put Hamor and his son Shechem to the sword and took Dinah from Shechem's house and left. The sons of Jacob came upon the dead body. So now this is the rest of the brothers. They show up. They find this whole city full of men dead. So what do? Well, they jump in on the action. They loot the city where the sister had been defiled. They seize their flocks, their herds, the donkeys, and everything else in there, in the city and out in the fields. And what do they do with it? They carried it off. All their wealth and their women, their children, they took his plunder and they brought it home. Text here, it's not as though we are practicing, that we're not these people. And yet there's some observations and application points that we can draw from this. Am I a passive dad? Am I a passive mom? Am I a passive son? Am I a passive neighbor? Am I a passive coworker? Do I sit by in the back of the train with my earbuds on while I see evil wickedness happening and turn and look the other way? You see your sister mercilessly picking at your brother. Do you just stand by and let it happen? Or do you, even though you are 10 or 12 years old or 16 or 18 years old, do you do something? Do you insert yourself? Do you attempt to bring a better resolution to the situation? Your children incessantly complain and fuss and whine and challenge and grumble against your husband or against your wife. What do you do as a husband or as a wife? Do you just allow the kids to continue to treat your spouse in the way that they're just sit back passively? They're just too much to deal with. I'm too tired to deal with this. Your spouse says it again. Your spouse does it again. Your spouse views it again. Your spouse uses it again. Do you sit by passively and just let it happen and do nothing? Passivity in this text didn't lead to anything good. It only led to destruction. Second observation, retribution. Retribution is the same thing. It led to destruction. Right? In this story, we find men who are killed out of a sense of grief and anger. Retribution, not staying in control of yourself, not managing your anger, allowing that to consume you and for you to return back a payment to somebody else for the evil that they've done to you. Again, maybe we don't encounter situations like Jacob and his sons have encountered here, or even situations like John on the train. And yet in our family, we experience hardship. We experience difficult things. In our neighborhood, we experience these things. People hurt us. And so how do we respond? How do you respond to your spouse? Do you give them in retribution the silent treatment? Passive aggression, right? Where you withdraw so as to communicate to your spouse that they've been bad in the way that they've treated you. Do you withhold affection or intimacy as a means and as a way to get back? Do you neglect shared responsibilities? You don't do the chores that you say that you are going to do, only to get back. Do you make sarcastic and cutting comments only to get back, to pay retribution? Do you go about seeking support of others, perhaps even the children, to win them to your side against your spouse? Do you even get aggressive and damage property and even physical harm? I mean, these forms of retribution, they take place probably in every marriage. But what does it produce? Does it produce anything good? Or does it only produce destruction? So again, you read the story and you're just like, what is the story about? Why do we have this story here? Passivity, destruction, retribution, destruction. God says nothing. And here's kind of my conclusion. Like, after sitting in a story like this for some time, you begin to realize that the story is teaching us that passivity and retribution don't accomplish the things in life that we seek. They don't accomplish life. And instead, what we see is that there's got to be a different way, a better way. And perhaps this is a way to say this, that by spotlighting the destruction of passivity and retribution, God is highlighting for us a better response, and that response is forbearance. Forbearance is not mentioned in the text. Nowhere is it said in the text. But the implication certainly is there's got to be a better way. We can't keep behaving like this, destroying each other through our passivity and our retribution. Forbearance. Let's go back to this story with John where we began. And this is how he ends his story. He says, I'm not a big person. I'm not trained in the martial arts. I've never considered myself particularly brave. Yet I knew with absolute certainty that I could not simply sit back and watch this helpless old man be mercilessly beaten. He's not going to be passive. He's going to act. How is he going to act? Next slide. I whispered a deep prayer. God, calm my fear. Show me the right thing to do. And then, without really giving my next actions any careful thought, I got out of my seat. I walked purposefully toward the old man and his attackers. Hans, I called out my best German. Hans, how are you? And then, slipping between the two of the surprised young men, I embraced him. I helped him to his feet, and I said, "Come sit with me, Hans. We have so much to catch up on." In the sudden silence that ensued, the old man followed me toward the rear of the car, slid into the window seat, and slowly, haltingly began to respond to my onslaught of questions about his health and his family. The teens, well, they looked on, not sure of how they should respond. And for a time, they talked amongst themselves. But when the train pulled into the next stop, they got out. And at the following stop, Hans left as well, mumbling a word of thanks. Worship team, we're going to invite you to come on up. This is a response of forbearance, right? John had a response of figuring out how to get in the middle of the situation. He says, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I just simply prayed and said, God, help me. I know I can't sit by passively and observe this situation. And sometimes we might need to do that too. God, help me. I can't sit by passively. I don't know how to respond. I don't know what to do. But God gives you the direction. And so Rather than responding in retribution and the anger and the horror of what he was seeing, he responds by coming up with a creative solution. He inserts himself in the story and the situation, draws the man away in order to provide him protection, thereby confronting the bad behavior of the teens and protecting the man, showing forbearance, grace, and truth. You know, it is Jesus Christ is the one who teaches this. He shows us this. 1 Peter chapter 4 describes how Jesus endured and stood up under the insults. Let me just read this text as we conclude. To this you were called, because Christ suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow in his steps. We should be like Jesus. He committed no sin, no deceit was in his mouth, but they hurled insults at him, and when they did, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats. Instead, he entrusted himself to him who judges justly. He himself bore our sin in his body on the tree, so that we might die to sin and live for righteousness. It's by his wounds that we've been healed, because we all are just like those 4 teenagers. All of us are evil and wicked. All of us are guilty of hurling these insults on Jesus Christ. And he endured it. He took your sin, he took my sin. All of us are like sheep who've gone astray. But understanding this and responding to the work of Christ, he is our shepherd, the overseer of our soul. So let us not wave a white flag of passivity. Let us not carry the club of retribution, but instead, let us practice the instrument of forbearance, demonstrating grace and truth, just like Jesus Christ, as we deal with the hard people in our life. Would you stand and sing with us? nice, simple thing, right? Don't be passive. Don't respond in retribution. Just live in forbearance. But it's really hard, isn't it? It's really hard. And can be very complex. If you find yourself in really hard situations and you need some assistance and guidance in working through that, please reach out. And we as a church will be glad to assist and to help. But as you go, church, keep those concepts in mind and live this way. Let's be a people who demonstrate grace and truth in the way that we live. Have a good week.